How often have we heard that the number of people belonging to voluntary and charitable organisations is falling? And we know that's to be true. For 50 years ago, most children belonged to a uniformed organisation. Now many branches of Scouts and Guides have closed for lack of members or lack of leaders. The Women's Institute, once the backbone of many a village's life, has vastly reduced numbers, as has the Mothers' Union, in this country at least, together with almost every other long-established club for adults. Sunday schools, which originally brought free education to children in the 19th century, and which almost every child attended, are now struggling in many churches, both in the city and in the countryside. Indeed, and I know this as I travel round, there are now a large number of churches which don't offer Sunday school at all, simply because there are no children. And many feel that some churches are in an equally precarious position. Many people are vaguely benign towards the church, perhaps willing to support the church faith or other fundraising efforts, but few are prepared to take on responsibility, putting the existence of some churches in jeopardy. Public interest in the nation's heritage of historical buildings may be at an all-time high, and a large number of tourists and visitors want to look around our ancient churches. But few of these people wish to attend services, and even fewer wish to attend services on a regular basis. Of course, that doesn't mean that God is any less popular in our country. Religious belief is still claimed by a large number of people, and in the year 2021, which is the last year for which records were released, the Church of England baptised just over 55,000 children. A significant number of couples come to church for their weddings, and most people still desire a religious funeral. This phenomena has been labelled believing without belonging by the sociologist Grace Davey. But this belief may no longer be what we might consider orthodox, such as those beliefs laid out, as we've just heard, by St. Paul writing to the Romans, the confession that Jesus Christ is Lord, and the belief that God raised Christ from the dead. God may not be in any way less popular in our nation, but a decline in church attendance undoubtedly reflects the huge change in lifestyle over the last 50 years. You'll know it here, many families are more mobile than they used to be. 50 years ago, most families could get out of their own area only by walking or by cycling, or if they were lucky, by bus. Now, because most families own a car, they can drive hundreds of miles in a day or a weekend. Families, I guess, including your own, are much more widespread. 50 years ago, most people stayed in their own area, supported by a tight-knit community of family living close by. In the countryside, a huge workforce was employed in agriculture, so that most people worked on the land in some capacity. Now, farms are run by just one or two people, and there's no work or housing in the countryside for young people, so inevitably families have to scatter. This means that weekends for many families are often taken up visiting relatives, and people drop out of the habit of church-going. But they haven't lost their quest for spirituality, and we see that in the great interest in vaguely spiritual things such as New Age religion, tarot cards, witchcraft, and so on. It seems then that there is still a receptive group for the church to attract, if it is to increase its chances of living. A receptive group to be told and shown that Christianity can fulfill their spiritual searching and needs. Told and shown that Christianity is exciting and fun. Told and shown that above all Christianity is true. At many commissioning services, often a reading from Isaiah is used, and you will know it has those famous words in which God asks, "Whom shall I send, and who will go for us?" It's a powerful reading, and many people will probably mentally reply with Isaiah, "Here I am, send me." In fact, I think we might have sung that hymn last week that had those words in it. Who, the God of sea and sky, who shall I send? Send me. And that's a theme that St. Paul also picks up in today's reading, when he said, "Everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved." But if you read on further, he adds plaintively, "But how can they call on one in whom they have not believed? And how are they to believe in one of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone to proclaim him? And how are they to proclaim him unless they are sent?" God has always needed proclaimers and messengers. That is clear throughout the Bible. God always did, and God still does. People who are willing to commit themselves to such an extent that they're prepared to tell others about God. That's not to say we all have to get up on a soapbox at Gray's Monument every Saturday. For some are called to preach, others may be called to teach. Some may be called to proclaim the news about Jesus to children, others may be called to engage with adults. But maybe God just needs some individuals who simply chat about Jesus in ordinary conversations with their friends and with their families, at home and at work. And that's something all of us can do. Chat about who God is and why Jesus is important and significant in our lives. When was the last time God or Jesus was mentioned at your dining table? In an age where commitment is unpopular and where mobility at weekends is a way of life, it will be difficult and demanding to respond to the call. But St. Paul's words remain a challenge to us all, as relevant today as they were 2,000 years ago. Then St. Paul was trying to spread the word in order to start churches. Now we need to spread the word in order that churches might become again vibrant places of community. But more importantly than that, we need to spread the word so that people can once again begin to hear about God and about Jesus, and having heard, begun to build a living and active relationship with God. Now, I know all of that might sound as impossible as walking on water. Merely the preacher's flight of fancy stood at the front. But today's Gospel reading tells us that Jesus did walk on water, and he enabled Peter to walk on water, at least until Peter allowed his fears to get in the way. Yet even when that happened, even when Peter begins to fall, Jesus was there to make sure he didn't come to any harm. And Jesus will do the same for us. We sang it in that hymn just now. Jesus will be with us, because we will not go out to do this task in our own strength. Held by Jesus, we will be prevented from drowning. Held by Jesus, we will be enabled to do far more than we ever dreamt possible, if and only if we step out in faith and we commit ourselves wholeheartedly. How are they to believe in one of whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone to proclaim him? Cries St. Paul. Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Challenges God. Here I am, replied Isaiah. Send me. Amen.